Hi, in this video we will discuss division with remainder. Let's look at the problem I have written on the board. Suppose we have 22 apples. We want to give away exactly 5 apples to each person. What's the maximum number of people who receive apples and how many apples are remaining? So let's look at this problem on the number line. We have 22 apples. We'll be giving away 5 apples to each person. So let's start doing that. 5 apples, so that's one person who receives it. And since we have 22 apples and we've only given away 5, we still have more apples. So we continue the measuring out 5 apples and so on. So when we do that, we get to 10, that's 2 people. Then we can get to 15, 3 people. 20, 4 people. And if you want to give apples to the 5th person, then we need 5 more. We need to have 25, but we don't have 25. We only have 22 apples. So after you're done distributing 20 apples to among 4 people by giving away 5 apples to each person, then we still have 2 more apples left. Here are the remaining 2 apples, and that's where we need to stop. And so the answer is the maximum number of people who receive apples is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 apples are remaining. We can write this in an equation in this nice form. 22 equals, we just counted off multiples of 5, 10, 15, 20. That's 4 multiples or 4 copies of 5. So that's what this says, 4 copies of 5. That's 20. And we said when we do that, we still have 2 more remaining, so plus 2. So look at the equation. 22 is 4 times 5 plus 2. Even though we don't need the parentheses, it's nice to put the parentheses because it makes it easy to read this equation. 22 as before is called dividend, 5 is called the divisor, this 4 is called the quotient, and 2 is called the remainder. Let's look at the remainder for a minute. Notice that the remainder could be 0 if we started out with a multiple of 5. So if this had been 20, we would simply get 20 equals 4 times 5 and the remainder is 0. For any other number, notice what are the possibilities for the remainder. The remainder could be, in this situation, when the divisor is 5, the remainder could be 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. This remainder could not be 5, because if you have 5, then you could give out 5 apples to another person. So when you're counting multiples of 5 in 24, you're counting the maximum number of multiples without going over 22. So once again, when you count multiples of 5, go 5, 10, 15, and we don't stop at 15 because we can continue going. 20, and now we have to stop because if you count 25, we go over 22. So when you do that, the remainder will always be a whole number between 0, it could be 0, and it has to be strictly smaller than 5. It could not be 5. It has to be a whole number less than 5. So this procedure is called division with remainder, because we are distributing out 5 apples, scooping out, and then when we start out with a number, dividend, that's not a multiple of 5, then we will have a remainder, as you can see in this equation. So now let's look at another example. That's not a word problem, but let's look at it on the other board. Let's look at this problem. Find the quotient and remainder when 49 is divided by 8. Write an equation that expresses the relationship between the dividend, divisor, quotient, and remainder. So let's look at 49. So we write 49 equals, and now we are looking at this divisor 8, and we're asking what is the maximum number of copies of 8 that are in 49. You could either draw the number line for this, or you could look at it in this manner. How many copies of 8 are in 49 when we start counting in 8? So let's do that. 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48. Looks like 6 copies. If I do 7 copies, that would get me to 56, but that would go over 49. So I could only do 6 copies of 8, which would get me up to 48. And then to get to 49, add 1. So 49 is 6 copies of 8 plus 1 more. And here, remember 49 is the dividend, 8 is the divisor, 6 is called the quotient. So quotient is 6 and remainder is 1. And we're going to look at more examples of this kind, and eventually we will end our discussion with long division algorithm. For now, given such problems, we will try to write this equation, and the way we'll proceed is we'll write the dividend first. 49 equals, put a parenthesis, times sign, and put the divisor here 8. And remember, we're trying to ask what's the maximum number of copies of 8 that are in 49. So then start counting in 8s, and without going over 49, whatever maximum number you get, that's 6 in this case, we write it here. So 6 times 8, and that's your 48. And ask yourself what you need to add to get up to 49. If you do this correctly, remember the remainder would be 0 if you started out with a multiple of the divisor, or it could be 1 or 2 or whatever. And in this case, it could never be 8. It always has to be a whole number or less than 8, because if you had 8, that means you have one more multiple that you could go over by. So remember that about the remainder. It can also only be a number, whole number from 0, 1, 2, 3 all the way up to but not including the divisor. It has to be strictly less than the divisor. So remember that. And then let's look at more examples in another video. Thank you.